Hello, everyone. Let folks grab seats. Thank you for joining us. I'm Nicole McCormack, and I'm with TeamSnap. TeamSnap is the largest community for everything youth sports, and we work with brands to connect brands to passionate audiences of youth sports families and parents, coaches, and athletes. And I have an incredible panel here today that I am super excited about. We'll dig into it, but women's sports has obviously been a hot topic now for several years and continues to be. And we're going to dig in today a little bit about women's sports, but also where it all begins, which is women's sports starts with girls in sports. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the youth angle here, and in particular girls. But let me announce my panel. So first we have Diana Flores. And Diana is the captain and quarterback of Mexico's world champion national flag football team. She serves as the global ambassador for flag football. She has won 4 national titles since 2017, so very busy, and was named the most valuable player at the 2022 World Games, where she led her team to a gold medal. So welcome, Diana. Also, fun fact, Diana got here, quick change of clothes from participating in the torch relay, the Olympic torch relay. So, and then we have Danette Leighton. Danette is CEO of the Women's Sports Foundation, which was founded by Billie Jean King. And since 1974, the Women's Sports Foundation has empowered and connected girls and women through the power of sport. They lead in research, advocacy, and community programming that improves access to play at every level. And last but not least, we have Thayer Lavielle. Thayer is Executive Vice President of The Collective at Wasserman and leads the practice that exists to advance the power of women in sports, entertainment, and music. So welcome, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
So I usually like to kick off with a little icebreaker, and because we just saw the torch go down La Croisette, I thought I'd ask, what event or sport are you most looking forward to at the Olympics? Diana.
Oh my God, that's hard. I think I always loved gymnastics and track. I could say those are my 2 favorites, but I'm already excited for it.
Yeah, for me, I can't pick one because we have so many athletes that are a part of the Olympics, but I am going to ask everybody to pay attention to the Paralympics this year. Our current president is a Paralympian, but just to see the amazing athletes of the Paralympics, I don't think gets as enough exposure as the Olympics does, and that follows right after the Olympics. So I'm going to be paying attention to Para this year.
I like that one.
I am going to go with swimming and then maybe some soccer.
Nice. Or football here in France. And Diana, I know you're most looking forward though to LA 2028 when flag will officially be part of the games, right?
Yes, I'm already looking forward for it. So we are officially an Olympic sport for LA 28, which it is a dream come true, like not only for me as an athlete, but for all the flag football community worldwide. So I'm already looking forward for that.
Yeah, that's great. Let me set a little context, and then we're going to dive into some of the discussion. So, as I mentioned, we've seen tremendous progress in women's sports and increased brand involvement in the women's sports space. We've seen headlines about record-breaking attendance, lots of new teams and athletes that are becoming familiar faces that we get to cheer for. And for the first time in 2024, women's sports will generate revenue that surpasses $1 billion. So a big number there. There is one important aspect, though, of women's sports that I think is often underinvested in by brands and also under-leveraged, and that's girls in sport. And as we said, I always say that women's sports starts with girls' sports, and increasing access for girls in sport isn't just about building the next generation of female athletes, but it's also about building the next generation of female leaders. I think many of us have heard the stat that 94% of C-suite, Fortune 500 C-suite female executives played sports growing up, and I think it's 52% of them actually played at the collegiate level. So it really does build kind of the next generation of leaders. And yet, unfortunately, girls drop out of sports at a rate 2 times that of boys by the age of 14, which we're going to get into and talk a little about. Danette, you focus on this issue a lot. I would love to hear from your perspective kind of the impact of having girls and all kids participate in sports, and what are some of the barriers to opportunities for girls?
Sure. So obviously we're thrilled about the momentum that's happening in women's sports, and we are encouraging brands to invest at all levels. But our organization was founded 50 years ago, which is 2 years after the passing of a very important bill in the United States called Title IX. And so we like to share that that piece of legislation is a reason why we're seeing this momentum today. It's not a coincidence that women's sports is where it is today, because that was really the trajectory for girls to start playing sports in the United States. And I also like to remind people, pay attention to the rosters in Paris. And when I say that, pay attention in all sports. You're going to see a lot of ties, no matter if it's on the Team USA rosters, but other countries' rosters, and pay attention where they went to high school and college. A lot of them were in the United States feeding system. So this whole process for girls in the United States has really been this tie between education as well as being able to compete in sports, and which created that momentum. But they had to have the right to be able to play. They had to have the equitable opportunity to play at a young level. And that's really kind of now 50 years, 52 years later, you're seeing this progress. But for us, there's been lots of barriers for girls, lack of access, lack of opportunities. We still have a stat for high school girls in the United States. There's still 1 million less participant numbers than the boys. And so basically where the girls are in high school sports in the United States is where the boys were in 1972. So although lots of progress has been made, we still have significant barriers. And we also have a lot of barriers as it relates to girls choose to quit at a middle school age, at the age of 14, for a lot of reasons that probably moms and others can understand. But we know that when girls continue to play, we don't care what level. Not all girls get to this level to play at the elite level. We know when they play, they lead, and it's really important to keep them playing in the game well past middle school, but they don't have to go become that next Olympic athlete, because we know that's a very small percentage. But when they play, you're going to hear the stats that Nicole referenced. You want your daughter, you want your sister, you want everyone to play sports because they'll become the next leader.
Thayer, from your perspective, I mean, you've been in the women's sports space for quite a while, and obviously the tremendous conversation around it right now. What's changed, though, around that conversation in the past couple of years, and what do you think's not talked about enough?
There's just such momentum right now around women's sports, which is amazing. Right before, in 2019, the U.S. women won the World Cup, and there was this huge groundswell of people saying, this is it, women's sports is finally going to get its day. Then fast forward a couple months into the pandemic, and it was like, never mind, no, they will never see another dollar, it's shutting down, forget it, we don't know how to do this. In reality, women's sports actually led through the pandemic. We were the first to go out with a virtual draft, to go figure out how to play in a bubble, because women's sports have always had to kind of figure it out, like grassroots style, so they figured it out. And little by little, they were developing these relationships. The athletes were developing relationships on social media, and while the rest of the world was sitting in their houses watching, making sourdough bread and watching Tiger King, we were also watching what these athletes were doing. And so we developed these relationships with them. So over the past couple of years, all of a sudden this groundswell of passion, loyal fans are all of a sudden like, oh yes, we do actually want to see this on TV. So let's put our dollars where our mouth is, basically our money where our mouth is, and invest more and lean in more on some of the broadcasters to make sure that it's visible for all of us to see. And then let's put in a little bit more sponsorship dollars, and let's put in a little bit more participation. The whole ecosystem is very broken. So yeah, we're going to reach $1 billion, but on the other hand, men's is 158 billion. So yeah, go girls. But like, we still have a lot of room to go, and we need all the help we can get to get there. And so part of our job at Wasserman and the Collective is really like, how do we create tools and services that help build business rationale, basically, to make it easier to invest, to make it easier to value, to make it easier to say, oh yeah, that's a worthwhile thing for me to go do. The other thing is that when we're talking about this ecosystem of girls coming into the space, it's also about like, how do you graduate into professional sports? And we do a lot of research and analysis, but one of the studies we did was around coverage of women's sports, and kind of taking this old myth around 4% of all coverage was given to women's sports, and actually it's closer to 16%, kind of with current mediums of conversation with social and streaming and digital. Oh my. Oh.
Hopefully
everyone
everyone's
okay? Oh
I
my.
think they got it.
Okay. Drama. But what was most interesting about that study, because it's now at 16% coverage, but what was most interesting about the study was that when we looked at Division I athletics, 53% of Division I athletic competitions are women's competitions. So at the Division I level, you have all this opportunity for women to succeed and literally fulfill their dreams. But when you go to professional, there's no place to graduate. It's only 8% of professional competitions are women's. And so all of a sudden the funnel gets very, very narrow. And where we really need to succeed is to have more leagues come online, more teams come online, more sports come online, to be able to graduate into a hockey league or a softball league or all sorts of things. And so you're seeing the rise of these new landscapes, which are incredibly exciting for college athletes of all countries to come on board. And flag is going to be.
I was just going to say that's a great segue when we talk about new sports coming and emerging sports. Deanna, you have an incredible story, your journey as an athlete starting as a young girl. Tell us a little bit about your story and also some of the barriers you had to overcome to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so, I started playing flag football when I was 8 years old in Mexico City. Back then, when I started, flag football was not a big sport. Like, anybody knew what was it. It was seemed to be a sport for boys. I remember my team and I, we had to play at a third field because we were not allowed to step on the football field because our sport was not seen as a serious sport, so we didn't have those kind of opportunities. We didn't have that support, and still I'm super grateful with my coaches, my teammates, and everybody that was part of that team because we just were there to pursue our dreams because we were passionate about the sport. Since then, it has been like 18 years full of amazing experience. I got the opportunity to travel around the world, connect with amazing people worldwide, but also lots of challenges. Since I was little, as I said, I understood the power of no. No, this sport is not for you. No, you're not meant to play this. No, you're not gonna get anywhere. No, you have to focus on school. Sports is not gonna leave you anything. You're not gonna get anything from sports. No, 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 no. So right now, to see where the sport is getting, how big it is getting worldwide, we're more than 20 million players in more than 100 countries right now, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. It is amazing because I never dreamed when I was little that all of this could be a reality one day. And I like to say this a lot because I feel that's an important thing. Like, I never dreamed that all of this could happen one day. Not because I didn't want it to, but it just wasn't a possibility. It didn't seem realistic for a girl. So right now, I think there are still a lot of things we can do to let all those little girls know and their parents that, yes, they can dream big, that they deserve, that they belong, and that they need to encourage their girls to pursue their dreams because, yes, there's a future here.
You mentioned the worldwide growth of flag football, and in the U.S. as well, it's one of the fastest growing sports. And one of the things that I think is interesting is 25% of the athletes participating are actually girls. So it really is seeing that growth. We've had 63% growth in the U.S. in participation just since 2019 in flag football. I know Thayer and Danette, you have some experience about just seeing this rise of flag football, particularly for girls. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about flag, specifically in the United States, is, of course, the NFL has figured out that it's going to be a great one to back as well. And so it's a huge audience and it's a huge opportunity to not only grow an NFL fan base, but they realize that so many girls want to play this sport. I think, I giggle because I play flag football in college, and I know if this would have existed in my youth, I would have played that as well. But there are so many girls that want to play multiple sports. and want the ability to, and this has never been an option. And so it is an unsaturated space, but it will be the fastest growing emerging sport, we believe, in the United States, because it will have not only great backing of the NFL, but everybody wants to play. It's a great sport to add. And one of the most important things is it does not require a significant amount of equipment. So it should be able to be in lots of communities, and they should be able to use an existing field on an existing school. So we think that's really important for barriers, especially in certain different marginalized communities. We want to make sure that every girl has an opportunity to play this sport. And this is one of those sports that doesn't require as much as certain sports do. And we think it's important for the growth, kind of how we saw with women's basketball and with the sport of soccer. Those have been sports that have been easy barriers to cross. And so we're really excited about how quickly this will grow. And I probably talk to a different state about flag football probably once every couple weeks. That's how quickly we think it's going to grow.
I have more of a personal experience with it in that my daughter, who's just finished her sophomore year in high school, really wanted to play flag, and I suggested she go to her AD and just ask to start a club, and she came home and was like, they said no, and I was like, no. That's an opening offer, and we're going to decline, and we're going to figure out what they need to go figure this out. And so what they really need is money. These schools are public schools. They need funding to go start a new club, because they also have to start a boys club to do that because of Title IX. And they don't have the double the money for that. So we then figured out, these poor people. So then we had to figure out how to go get the money, and we really worked with the Carolina Panthers, who were like our ride or dies in it, and to really start this it's county-wide. 18 months later, we started a county-wide club with 500 girls, or not even a club, it's a varsity sport in our county. 500 girls, 20 schools, and it's kicking off as a varsity sport this year. So we're very excited. I'm super proud of her.
I love that. I love that Coco got that all started.
Yes.
Coco.
So they're giving me 5 minutes because we are trying to get back on schedule after the interruption of the torch relay, which was a good interruption. So I did want to talk about brands. This is a brands audience. And hear from each of you, Thayer, maybe starting with you, because this is what you do at the collective. How can brands get involved, and how can they look at this ecosystem of girls in sport and things like your daughter's doing and strategize where they fit in?
I truly believe every brand can have a role in women's sport or helping to get more girls in sport. It's just a matter of how that fits for the brand, obviously. Whether that's in a B2B setting and supporting, back-end organizations that are not necessarily direct to consumer, but are that still kind of funding women's, sports foundation or such. When we look at it as and particularly in a group like this, how are you guys investing your money into advertising on the big networks and kind of compelling them to show sports when it needs to be shown? Or how are you investing in specific athletes and making sure that you're actually leaning into supporting them as individuals? We did another study that says that women athletes make 21 times less than men athletes, which means they have to make 82% of their income off the field of play. 82%, you guys. So imagine your full-time job. Now you have to go actually do another job to make 82% of your living, which is where they start to develop these really deep relationships with their fans online, which makes them doubly engaging. So they drive double the engagement than men athletes, which drives up their value. So those are the kinds of things that we help provide to brands to be able to say, hey, look, let us help you measure and qualify your actual rationale for this, because this is like the new economy of sport is women's sport. Get in now, because it will only become more expensive.
Want me to take that one too? So prior to this role, I spent time running a WNBA franchise, spent a lot of time in college athletics. So I've seen everything on the men's and the women's side, both pro and collegiate. What I think is very powerful about the women's sports space is that it's completely unsaturated. But I try to remind people that it is like a startup that their product has been nurturing for like 52 years. It's a ripe, strong product. So you make a decision to go invest in a startup without knowing if that product's going to work or not. Women's sports has been doing it for 52 years. And it has been ready to go, but it's been very hard to understand how to navigate, how to intentionally invest in women's sports because of how we've been structured. So now I think the most important thing for brands and advertisers is, one, to understand that there is something at every level. The youth sports level, in my opinion, and what TeamSnap is doing is fascinating because they have a market of parents who are all craving a location to be able to communicate with other parents in the youth sports space and think about that market that they have access to of all those parents whose children play 5-6 sports. And they have this entire ecosystem that they can talk to that I've never seen in youth sports, because youth sports in the United States is completely fragmented, and TeamSnap has that ability to do that. And I feel very strongly about what they're doing. In the collegiate space, it's the same. People don't know how to intentionally invest in different women's sports properties within even a Division I school or different universities. At Division I, Division II, Division III. And in the pro space, we have some representatives here today. I can see we have PWHL and ice hockey. We have Athletes Unlimited, who just launched a new softball league. There's so many brilliant spaces on the elite side that you can be investing in. So to me, it just seems like an absolute no-brainer for a brand to invest in this space, because it is unsaturated, it's a blank canvas, and it's a proven product. And it's something that I think you will not be disappointed in. And on the top of the other point that I noticed very quickly in the women's sports space, the avidity of fans is insane. They are loyal to brands that invest in their teams and leagues. And there is no doubt about that. And now is the time.
And you get great representatives like Diana.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we'll close. I know you need to move on. But Diana, what do you hope to see? What do you hope changes in the next few years?
What I hope to see. Well, for me, women in sports, female athletes have the power to change the narrative, to change things. We have done that for a very long time, the athletes before us. That's the power of female athletes. And for that, we need to invest, yes, but also focus on breaking stereotypes in changing the narrative, not only for the current athletes, not only for the current generations of athletes out there, but also for the future generations. And for that, I think that it is very important to talk to the parents and to talk to those little girls. One of the reasons why all of the young athletes, female athletes, drop from sports, it's mainly because of these cultural barriers, stereotypes, and most of the time because of their own beliefs. Because most of them, they don't feel enough. It's not their fault. They were never told that they can play. They were never told that they are enough, no matter what you do. You don't have to be the pro athlete. You don't have to be at the Olympics to be enough and just to enjoy the game and to play the game and to be good at it. And that's enough because you are already enough. So I feel that it is very important to spread that message, to empower all these little girls, the future generations, and also empower their parents, because right now they are the decision makers. And most of the times it is not their fault to not have the maybe the resources, or maybe they don't know how to encourage their girls or where to take them. But if we let them know that their daughters can have a future in this, and even if they don't become pro athletes, they will become better persons, better leaders, better at whatever they want to do in life, that's a life-changing thing, not only for the parents, but for the future female leaders out there.
Amazing. We need to change that answer to yes. Right, Diana? Thank you all so much for a great
Nicole.
discussion.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.